Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to In the Garden with Joyful Living. I am Kimberly Dixon. While we wait for a few people to join us this morning, we're going to go ahead and start taking a look at the garden. Actually, today I'm on the front porch. The last few weeks I've been on the back, but again, everything has been moved because of the rain that we've had, and I'm still doing things on the front, so I will be moving back and forth. So this is the gardenia bushes that are in front of my house. They form lovely little white flowers, but because of the rain, as you can see, they're turning yellow and dying back. But these bushes have the most beautiful scent. Every time the wind blows, or even when it's really hot and sunny, you can smell the scent of gardenia. Now, I don't like artificial gardenia scent and perfume and things of that nature, but these fresh flowers, wonderful. So the African daisies are still doing well. I always break off any of the ones that have already died to encourage new growth, because the plant's not having to put energy into something that's already died. And that is I think it's called Delilah, forming new buds and flowers. That's the better bush tomato. Look at all the tomatoes on that plant. We're just giving it a few minutes to go around the garden as we wait for some people to join us. This tomato plant is an offspring or a clipping from the one I just showed you. You see the new growth on the top here? I was repotting this one and accidentally broke the part of it that was on this side. But it was such a large stem and it had fruit on it. I took the fruit off, let it finish ripening on the table because it had already started turning red, and just stuck it in some soil. And you can tell that it's forming roots because it's growing. Some of it that was already existed is dying back, but otherwise it's doing very well. This is the Roma tomato. It has some Roma tomatoes on. I just don't see them at the moment. I look at these plants every day, multiple times a day. That's the other better bush. It has tomatoes on it as well. And there are some bigger ones down there. Everything is doing really well. That is the the red bell pepper. They all start out being green, and the bigger they get and the more sun they get is when they'll get their color. This is the green bell pepper. It's got a baby on it. My kale. It's really doing well. I eat a lot of this kale. I have kale salads a couple times a week. But what I'm going to do so that the peppers have enough room to grow, because I followed the planting chart on this little cart when I purchased it, but that's too much in that container. And so that the peppers thrive the way I would like for them to. Good morning, Mary. I'm going to cut some of the kale completely out of here because I've been using the cut and come again method, which I cut from the bottom, and that allows the plant to continue to grow from the top. A couple of green bean sprouts still doing well. Rosemary doing well. The garlic chives, I don't know what's going on with them, but I'm still eating it. That rosemary is doing well. Mint, I cut that back yesterday because I gave one of my spiritual mothers that came to visit me, I gave her some of it. This is my lettuce bed. It started out being on the back, but lettuce is a cool weather crop, and it doesn't like a whole lot of sun. And so I figured it would do better here on the front porch, and it has. I had to start that one actually completely over. Good morning, Alice. The muslin mix is doing well. This is African daisies. I'll move that to the back a little later. Arugula, green leaf, and more arugula. Arugula is one of my favorite types of lettuce, so I have to make sure I have a lot of it. But it's doing well, and it's overseeded. So what I'll do when it gets big enough to eat, it's just completely take some of it out to eat it, and then just use the cut and come again method with the rest of it. This is a illustration of what the cut and come again looks like on romaine lettuce. As you can see, I've been cutting the lettuce from the bottom, but new lettuce continues to grow from the top. And because it's been so moist and wet, I had a couple of mushrooms to develop in here. Mushrooms are an indication of two things. One is really good soil, and two is that it's a lot of humidity or a lot of dampness. So I won't water this just so that it doesn't get too wet. Collard greens, something has attacked them. I've been spraying it with neem oil, but I'm gonna probably cut this tomorrow and cook as much as I can salvage, and the rest of it, I'll probably just find something else to put in those pots, because something is just really feasting on it. The cabbage is still doing well. It's still, I mean, it has some evidence of insects as well, but it's doing well. And that was an old container of arugula, but I ate every bit of that. I told y'all my arugula was my favorite. And that's my little strawberry basket. One of them. That's two of them. It has some flowers on it to form some new strawberries right now. So I won't be on here alone this morning, but I wanted to talk to you just a few minutes about cultivating joy in your life. So people know me as a Joyful Living Life Coach, and that is wonderful. It's something I have worked diligently and hard at, but that's the reason I want to talk to you, because people often ask me about joy and, you know, how it relates to happiness. But my spiritual mother had an occasion to come by yesterday. She had to bring me something, and she made the comment, "Good morning, Tamika. Thank you for sharing the video. Guys, please share if you haven't already shared." She made the comment to me that, "Kim, you personified joy. You have cultivated it." And that reminded me that just like with this garden, how I've had to work in it, how I've had to cultivate it, how I've had to make sure the soil was right, make sure that it had enough water, make sure that I did things to prevent disease, and to once an attack has been shown, to, you know, help the plant to survive. Just like those collard greens, I've been putting neem oil on it. But you have to cultivate joy in your life. We all have it on the inside of us innately. Good morning, Wilma. We are born with it. But the trials of life, the things that happen in life, will sometimes suck the joy out of us. It will make us feel as if we're being punished. As a teenager, I honestly thought I was being punished. It will make us feel forgotten. It will make us feel just some kind of way about life, to the point where we are bitter, mean, and nasty. So joy is something that I had to make a decision that I did not want to be mean and bitter. I knew lots of people who were great people, but I could tell that life had really thrown them for a loop, and now they were just angry. And that wasn't what I wanted for myself. So the first decision I had to make was that this isn't who I wanted to be, because I was mean. I knew I was mean, and I knew I was mean. And it's a big difference in being, well, I won't go into all of that, but as a young person in my 20s, I had an edge to me that was, it was my wall of protection. But in protecting myself, I was pushing other people away. So in order to bring some joy into my life, I had to make a decision that the person that I wasn't who I wanted to be. I did not want to be, if I was that mean in my 20s, I couldn't imagine what it was going to look like at 60 or 70 years old, when life really got a hold of me. Good morning, Freddie. Good morning, Cornelius. So to cultivate the joy, the first thing you got to do is make a decision that the person that I am today, and I can say this to you with certainty and boldness because I'm talking from experience. You got to make a decision that the person I am right now is not who I want to be. Because we all have something on the inside of us, our instincts, the God in us that's tugging at us to be a better person, to do the right thing, but life is showing us something different. So in order to cultivate joy in my life, I made a decision, not in my 20s, that's when I was my absolute meanest, but in my late 30s, I made a decision that the person that I was and who I was quickly becoming, even deeply rooted in, that wasn't who I wanted to be. So that was the first thing I did to cultivate some joy. And the second thing is, though, you have to realize is that life is full of hardships. And I've told you guys this many times. Life is full of hardships. We cannot choose what comes our way in our life. But what we do get to do is choose how we respond to it. So when you want to cultivate joy in your life, you gotta have you gotta take a breath. Before you open your mouth to say anything, before you act, you got to take a breath and determine, okay, what are the repercussions of this going to be? Because everything we do has consequences. And to cultivate joy, I had to learn how to, one, to breathe before I said anything. And then two, to think about this from a perspective of how is this going to benefit me and how is it going to benefit them? Because the last thing I wanted to do was to leave a trail of broken, shattered people behind me. I know with the things that have been done to me in my life that left a scar. Because everything we experience, whether it's a physical scar or an emotional one, it leaves a scar. So we have to take a breath and determine what is the best route to take here before we do anything, before we open our mouth, before we act. And then number 3 is realize that having joy doesn't mean being happy all the time. Y'all, this week has been so tremendously hard for me, and I've been honest with people in my circle that I'm a single person. I live alone. This isolation thing has been difficult for me because I enjoy being with people. I am a hugger, and so just spending so much time alone has been difficult for me. But then the actions of the killing of the young man, no, not killing, but the murder, because if anybody saw the video, I had to make myself watch that video because I don't watch news on TV, but I like to stay abreast of what's going on. So I watched the video, and for you to be able to keep your knee on someone's neck while they beg for help, and then continue to keep your knee on them after they are lifeless, that's horrendous, and I can't even wrap my mind around it. But before I had any kind of response to it, I had to take a breath because I was hurt, I was angry, and I was mad. And I know if I let that emotion come out first, that it wasn't going to be pretty. It wasn't going to be nice. And not to say life has to be pretty or nice all the time, because the scriptures teach us there's a season and a time for everything. But I didn't want to come out and make a response off of emotion. So we have to realize that in order to keep joy on the inside, we got to realize that we're not always going to be happy. Because there's a difference. Happiness, sadness, being mad, those are all emotions, and they all have a place. And God gave us all of those emotions. But joy is something different, because joy is something that is innately a part of you, and it resides on the inside of you. So you have to know how to cultivate the joy in your life so that this world doesn't turn you upside down. Because it'll make you want to do some things. It'll make you, people who will make you want to do some things. And, we're trying to do the social distancing now, and you go in some stores and some people are doing it, and then some act like absolutely nothing is going on. And it doesn't mean to walk around in fear, because I am not a fear-based person. But the word teaches us, good morning, Davis. The word teaches us that we have to practice wisdom too, and that we are supposed to follow rules. So I'm not saying this to, to bash anybody over the head, but I'm just saying that there's a season and a time for everything, and that when I go in a grocery store and I see somebody not following the rules, it's not my place to correct them, but to cultivate joy in our lives. we have to, number one, make the decision that the person that I am today is not who I hope to be in the future. That I want to be someone who is a contributor to the world instead of someone who is leaving a trail of scattered, broken pieces behind me. And we can do that whether we are male or female, whether it is intentional or unintentional, when we don't ever deal with the hurt and the pain that we experience ourselves. We end up, you can look back and see a trail of people that you have broken in the midst of your brokenness. So the first way to cultivate joy in your life is to make that decision that the person that I am today is not who I want to be in 20 years. It requires that you take a long, hard look at yourself and say, I can be better than this. I can do better than this. And then, you want to make sure that you take a breath before you open your mouth to speak. It's like, is this going to be beneficial? Is it true? Is it, does it add to the situation or detract from it? So take a breath before you say or do anything. And we want to make sure that we practice things like meditation, studying the word, and prayer that are going to move us closer to God. Because I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. You cannot have joy in your life if you don't know who God is. He is the one who put the joy in us, and to try to go through, to try to navigate this world without Him, to shut Him out, we're going to be discouraged. We're going to feel broken. We are going to feel hopeless, because He is our hope. That's where our faith is built on Him. He is our hope. Our faith comes from Him. We cannot have joy if you don't have a relationship with God. And this is the thing about having a relationship with God. It's not knowing Scripture. You can know Scripture backwards and forwards and not have an intimate relationship with Him. And having a relationship with Him is more than just a t-shirt. Because I have a t-shirt that says relationship over religion. But you have to live that. You have to have a heart for God, first of all, and you have to have a heart for people. And that means that I have to humble myself. If I make a mistake and I do something wrong or I say something, I am ask any of my friends and even ask random people, I will apologize. I remember when I was working on my, finishing my graduate degree. No, it was my undergraduate degree. It was my bachelor's, because I was in my late 30s. And the woman in the financial aid office had made me mad one day. I was on the phone with her and I hung up on her. And, I knew her name or whatever, but I know it wasn't a week later. I was in the office and I was having this very pleasant conversation with this woman. And then I said, what is your name? And she told me her name. And it was the woman that I had hung up on. And I told her, I was like, I owe you an apology. And she said, for what? And I was like, I was frustrated. It's like things weren't going. I was like, I had already had a hard day at work. And then I got on the phone with you and I wasn't getting the answer that I wanted. And out of anger, I hung up on you. And that wasn't fair to you. She was stunned. She's like, in all the years, she's like, and I've been hung up on many times. She's like, nobody has ever apologized to me. Like, to have more joy in our life, we got to admit when we're wrong and then rectify the situation. Some things we can't go back and fix, because I may not have ever been able to see that woman again, but I had prayed about it. And as soon as I did it, I was like, God, please forgive me. But when I got an opportunity, I apologized to her. So in order for us to cultivate some joy in our life, we got to do things differently. Just the same way that I cultivate this garden and I work on this garden to make sure that they're nourished and that they're taken care of and that they grow the way nature intended, the way God intended, I have to do things to cultivate it. Because this tomato plant, the first few that came off of it had blossom end rot, which is an indication of either one or two things: that the pot is drying out and the watering is infrequently, or it has a calcium deficiency. So I made sure that I watered it consistently and I gave it a calcium supplement. I don't know why I can't speak this morning. But if you want joy in your life, you got to cultivate it. Some plants you can put in the ground and they'll just grow on their own without any assistance, but other things you have got to cultivate it. You got to make sure that it's in good soil, that's full of nutrients, that is going to allow the plant to be its healthiest. You got to protect it from pests and give it the nutrients that it needs. Joy is the same way. We are born with it, but the trials that we go through in life will sometimes make us feel some kind of way about life and about other people. So if you want to have joy in your life, you got to cultivate it. You got to take care of it. And when you know you're feeling sad, mad, angry, then that's when you have to do something, the self-care that you need so that you can keep your peace. So this week, well, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm in my garden every day, multiple times a day, because I know this is where I get my peace. I can come out here and I can watch God at his best. Good morning, Tanya. Because watching plants grow, it just reminds me second by second how big God is. I can leave these plants in the evening time and literally come back in the morning and see the growth that has occurred. And that's just evidence to me that even when I can't see God, he is always in the midst. So cultivating your peace means finding an activity or something that is going to bring you, that brings you joy. It means taking care of your mind spiritually, psychologically. It means taking care of your body. Y'all know me. You know me personally. I am a big girl, but I'm getting ready to go out here with my trainer and run because I've had 11 orthopedic surgeries. And I know that in order for me to continue to walk and to be strong, I have to exercise. And so I get out there and run. He's a professional runner, so he trains other athletes. He trains other people that are, one girl who's my age, but they are half my size, and most of them are half my age. Doesn't matter. That's part of my self-care regimen, because if I'm broke down, sick, and unhealthy, you can't have joy in the middle of that. It's extraordinarily difficult to have joy in the middle of that. I know I've lived it. But that was where making a choice came. I made a choice that I wanted to be joyful, that I wanted to be filled from the inside out, so that the external circumstances, the physical pain that I was in every day, didn't suck the joy out of me that God had already placed in me. So guys, I really didn't have anything official to talk about, but yesterday when my spiritual mother stopped by and she mentioned cultivating joy, I knew immediately that's what I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about today, because people make the mistake of believing that I'm happy all the time. I am not. Things affect me just the way they affect you. But the difference is I cultivate the joy in my life. I make sure that I'm doing things that, when I do retreats, I often do this exercise where you pour into I take a cup and I pour into everybody else's cup. And then eventually my cup gets empty. But it's a self-care exercise to show people that you can't continue to pour out of you and then not do things to pour back into yourself. And I pour back into myself by prayer. I study the word every morning. I meditate on it. I read a multitude of things. But then I do things like I garden. I walk. When I'm walking in the neighborhood, I listen to the music, and oftentimes I know my neighbors will be like, what in the world is that woman doing? Because I have my hands lifted up, I'm praising, I'm talking, and that's how I refill my cup. You cannot keep your joy if you're constantly pouring into other people, but you're never allowing anyone else to pour into you, and you're not pouring into yourself through a good self-care regimen. And I'm going to leave after this point, but then you have to allow other people to pour into you. Like I said, my spiritual mother came to me to see me yesterday to drop something off. I have a spiritual father who is across the country. I have my siblings and my parents and my, a multitude of friends that just in casual conversations, we pour into each other, we support each other, and we tell each other when you're wrong. Like, child, you know that ain't right. But we pour. We are determined that we are not going to leave this world, good morning, Rob, and leave a trail of broken, scattered bones behind us because we hurt other people. So cultivate joy in your life today. Guys, thank you for watching In the Garden with Joyful Living. I love you. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.